Hello, my name is Lian Yu. Today I will be presenting my grade 12 English culminating assignment on the Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. The Yellow Wallpaper is a short story about a woman who is experiencing psychological distress. Her husband, John, is both her partner and her doctor. John believes that the best way to help her recover is by keeping her isolated and limiting her activities. The narrator is taken to a large country house where she is confined to an upstairs room. The room has disturbing yellow wallpaper which becomes the focus of the narrator's obsession. With no freedom to express herself or make decisions, her mental condition deteriorates. She begins to believe there is a woman trapped behind the wallpaper struggling to escape. As the story progresses, the narrator's psychological state breaks down completely. In the end, she tears down the wallpaper, believing she has freed the woman, and in doing so, she loses her grip on reality. This story clearly reflects feminist concerns. The narrator's husband, John, makes all decisions for her, believing that as a man and as a doctor he knows what is best. But his treatment, isolating herself, limiting her freedom, actually makes condition worse. This line, John says the very worst thing I can do is to think about my condition and I confess it always makes me feel bad. This line shows how her opinions and feelings are dismissed. She has no control over her own life, body, or mind. Feminist theory helps us to see how the story criticizes the social structures that silence women and deny them independence. We can also analyze the narrator's mental breakdown using psychoanalytic theory. There is one marked peculiarity about this paper, a thing nobody seemed to notice but myself. This line, at first the narrator hates the color and pattern, but over time the wallpaper becomes a symbol of herself, her mental state. She starts seeing a woman trapped behind the wallpaper, but this woman represents herself. The trapped woman is a symbol of the narrator's repressed identity and emotions. As her isolation increases, these feelings become stronger and eventually her reality collapses. This reflects how repression and lack of self-expression can damage mental health. The story also uses irony to show the gap between what the characters believe and what is really happening. John believes that isolating his wife will help her recover, but in reality, his treatment is what leads to her mental breakdown. This dramatic irony makes the story more powerful because the readers can see the damage happening even when John refuses to accept it. Another important device is the narrator's voice. The story is written in the first person through a woman's journal entry. This allows the readers to experience her thoughts, emotions, and confusion directly. As her mental state gets worse, the writing the writing style also changes, becoming more fragmented and intense. This helps us understand her psychological decline in a very personal way. The Yellow Wallpaper also connects closely to The Wars by Timothy Finley, particularly through shared themes of psychological distress, isolation, and loss of control. In The Wars, Robert Rose faces external pressure from the military and internal struggles with grief and trauma. Similarly, the narrator in The Yellow Wallpaper faces external control from her husband and internal psychological conflict. But both characters feel trapped by systems they cannot escape. Robert is confined by the violence and structure of war, and the narrator confined by gender roles, medical authority, and societal expectations. Their responses to this confinement reveal their desperation. Robert tries to rebel by saving the horses, an act that challenges military authority. And the narrator tears down the wallpaper, attempting to free herself, but instead loses her sense of reality. In both texts, we see how social structures, when left unchecked, can lead to psychological collapse and distorted perceptions of freedom. In conclusion, the yellow wallpaper shows us that when people are isolated, silenced, and denied control over their own lives, the consequences can be devastating, not only for their mental health, but for their entire sense of self. Through the narrator's experience, Gilman critiques the way society, especially during the 19th century, dismissed women's voices and emotions. This connects closely to the wars, where external forces like war and authority have similar damaging effects on identity and mental well-being. Both texts remind us that when people lose their agency, private, whether in private life or in times of conflict, the human mind can break down in ways that are both tragic and irreversible. Thank you for listening.